So the next part of this puzzle is the use of plugins. So what we're doing in this case is we're using WordPress as a website builder. And when you use WordPress in this capacity, you have additional options not available to you if you use WordPress as a blog software. Okay, it's set up differently. It has additional features, and that's what we want to take advantage of. Um, you have to set up hosting, set up a domain, and then install WordPress on the host in the server. And then from there, you begin to take advantage of the ability to use thousands of themes and thousands of plugins. In this case, we're running local WP, but it still allows us to do that type of configuration. So the cool thing is that it gives us the ability to emulate the way that WordPress would run if you were on a server and you had hosting. So what is a plugin? A plugin is a helper application that enhances the functionality of your website. And the way I think of plugins as a way to solve various types of problems. So here I am back inside of my theme, and back inside of WordPress, and we were looking at themes. And what I want to do is I want to go over and click on plugins. So right now there are no plugins installed for this particular theme. So I'm going to do a search for plugins. I'm going to click plugins, add new, and it goes to this add plugins page. And these are some common plugins that you'll see for websites. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how to evaluate a plugin. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the classic editor. So WordPress used something that they call now the classic editor for years, and then about 4 or 5 years back, they upgraded the page builder from the classic editor to something called Gutenberg. And now if you go into WordPress, most of the time you will use the Gutenberg editor. We're going to learn how to use both. My problem with the Gutenberg editor is there are a lot of cool features that it had, but there are a lot of things that it didn't do quite so well. And so it didn't do enough. It did more than the classic editor, but the Gutenberg editor, I'm not too fond of it. It's clunky and it has some drawbacks. So let's look at this one for instance. So I'm reading what it says here, and this one allows me to install the classic WordPress editor. Okay, and we're going to learn how to use that. So then I can see how many activations or installations it's had. I can see whether it's compatible with my version of WordPress. So you always want to make sure that the plugin is compatible with your current version of WordPress. It will say if it is or if it isn't. It'll say how often it's been updated, and that's important too, to make sure that it's in compliance. And then I can click for more details. And I come up and I can read what it says here. Right, I can look at how it's structured. I can read the reviews, and I can get an idea of what kind of reviews that the plugin is getting. I can look at the rating. I can look at the author. I can look at the compatibility and the version of PHP that it needs. So I can do all that. And this is what the classic editor looks like. And this is the editor I grew up with. That was a joke. This is the editor that I started working with in WordPress. And there are some cool things about it, not so cool. We'll talk about that later. Next is I have a frequently asked questions section, so I can read through that. I can look at the change log. How often has it been modified? I can look at screenshots, and I can see what the classic editor looks like. And I can look at reviews and see what it says. So this one reviews 1 star, the rest of them are 5 stars. And so I evaluate the plugin. And usually what I do is if I'm looking for a plugin to solve a problem, let's say I look for something, a calendar, or I'm looking for a plugin for a form, or I'm looking for a plugin that allows me to create a slider. What I'll do is I'll review 5 or 6 plugins at least, maybe as many as 10, and then I'll pick the best 3 and I'll download the plugin or install the plugin. I'll work with the plugin. I'll see if it does what I need it to do. I'll see how easy it is to use, because sometimes the plugins can be difficult to understand or configure, and you have to understand that it is an open source environment, and so sometimes the plugins work really well, sometimes not so well. And if it doesn't do what I need it to do, or if it's too difficult to understand, if I can't, if maybe it's powerful, but there's a lot of coding involved, and I don't want to spend a lot of time learning how to code this plugin, then I'll delete it or uninstall it. So I'm going to try to uninstall plugins, and then I'll uninstall the plugin and try the next one until I find a plugin that does what I need it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click install now, and I'm going to install this plugin. After I install a plugin, I have to activate the plugin. And now the plugin is activated and installed. Okay, now if I ever decide that I don't want a plugin anymore, I can click deactivate, and then I can also click delete, and I can delete the plugin. So if I have a plugin and I'm not using the plugin, in addition to deactivating it, you'll want to delete it. And the reason why is because it's taking space up that can be used for other things. Now, the idea of plugins is you always have to worry about compatibility, right? So there's, because of the fact that this is open source and you have all these combinations of themes, of WordPress and plugins, there's lots and lots and lots of different combinations, and sometimes things may go wrong. So one is the fact that all of these things are moving targets. Their version of WordPress will constantly be updated, and you'll need to stay on top of that, right? That's the price you pay for using WordPress. 2 is that the theme may need to be updated. And 3 is that each plugin may need to be updated, and the times that they'll need to be updated will vary. In addition to that, your version of PHP may need to be updated. So if I update my version of WordPress or update the theme, a plugin may fall out of compatibility, and the job that it served may no longer be able to do that particular job. You may have to uninstall it or find another plugin, or if you can, update the plugin. So there's the compatibility between the WordPress, the version of WordPress, the theme, the plugins, and PHP. And I have to try to keep all those things in compliance with one another. Now, I can also go to WordPress and evaluate plugins from here. So I can search for plugins. Let's say I want a form builder. Click search, and it's going to show me a bunch of form builders. All right. So the form builder I like to use is Caldera, and it didn't bring up Caldera, but I know what I'm looking for, so I'm going to type in Caldera, and I can do this at the inside of WordPress, or I can do this here. And so I'm looking for Caldera Forms, and here's Caldera Forms. So once again, just like we installed the theme in 2 different ways, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to install my plugin. So Caldera Forms is a form builder that I like to use. It's pretty easy to configure and to use, and it works very, very well, and it's easy to configure. And there's lots of different form builders out there. This is the one that I prefer, so this is the one we're going to use in the class. I'm going to click Caldera Forms, and then once again, I want to review. I want to look at. So one of the things I like is when they have a little video that describes how to use the form. Once again, when I'm installing the plugin, I want to see the documentation. I want to, and then usually there's a set of instructions that you'll need to follow to be able to understand how to use the plugin. Lots of times what I like is when they have a video that explains how to use the plugin. So once again, I want to look at the version, when it was last updated. I want to look at the ratings. I want to look at whether it's been tested with the current version of WordPress, what version of PHP it supports. And then I can go and I can click and I can look at reviews. I can look at installation, right? I can look at support. So that sent me to a different place. Let's go back. And I can look at development, and the idea is that I just want to get an idea of what's happening with this form, and I want to go and click download, and I want to take that form and I want to click and place it into my downloads folder. So this is interesting. I've never seen this before. It's saying that this plugin hasn't been tested with the latest 3 major releases of WordPress. It may not be maintained or supported. It may have compatibility issues when used with more recent version of WordPress. I'm going to go ahead and install it, but it looks like I may have to start looking for another form builder, which is too bad because it is like one of my all-time favorite form creators because of its simplicity. So we're going to go ahead and install it for now, and then I may have to find something else later. But let's go on and finish this exercise. So once again, I'm going to go back to plugins. I'm going to click Add New, and then this time I'm going to upload the plugin the same way I uploaded the theme. I click Upload Plugin. I choose File. I navigate to the downloads folder. I select the form. The form is zipped, and I unzip it. I click Open. Then I click Install Now, and now I'm installing that form. Okay, the plugin, and it says unpacking the package, installing the plugin installed successfully, activate plugin. And now I've successfully activated the plugin. And what will happen when you activate a plugin is that it will have there will be a new section on the menu on the side. In this case, Caldera Forms comes up on the side, and all the features for this particular form element comes up over here. And this is where I go to configure or use the form. The form, in this case, the plugin. And so what we'll do later is we'll look at some common plugins that I like to use that solve different types of problems. We're going to go through and install a bunch of different plugins, and then we're going to configure a few different elements. Like we'll create a survey, and we'll also create a contact element, and we'll look at events calendar for creating events. We'll look at a few different plugins and look at some of the features and how to customize and use the plugin. If the plugin isn't working, if it doesn't do what you need it to do, in addition to uninstalling it, delete it so that you can keep that website lean and mean. You don't want plugins in there that are just taking up space. Okay, so that's kind of an introduction to understanding the use of plugins.